Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our School Counselor Symposium in partnerships with PDE this morning. As you are joining us, please write in the chat where you're from and what level you work in. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We're going to start in about 1 minute. In the meantime, while you are joining the webinar, please write in the chat your school, where you work, and the levels that you serve. Thank you. All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second in our series of School Counselor Symposiums, sponsored by PSCA in partnership with PDE. My name is Amelia Pfeiffer, and I am the Executive Director of PSCA. I am also a practicing school counselor at East Allegheny High School. So I want to welcome you all this morning. Today's topic will be covering MTSS for the first hour of the webinar, and then the second hour of the webinar we will move on to counselor tech tools. I just want to let you guys know that we have one more symposium in this series, and it will be coming up in 2 weeks on October 14th. It will be covering the career readiness standards, and we will have as our speaker on that day, Laura Frederici from PDE. And that webinar again will be from 8:30, just the same as this time, and it will run until 10:30 in the morning. So at this time, to get started, I would like to introduce our first speaker who will be talking about MTSS. She is Dr. Pamela Emery. She is a contributing consultant to the Office for Safe Schools with PDE, and she has a lot of knowledge to share with us this morning. So Dr. Emery, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and take it away. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm really delighted to be here this morning. Want to thank each of you for the work that you're doing on a regular and sustained basis with our kids. We couldn't do it without you. So I just wanted to say good morning, tell you a little bit about myself. I am now and have been for the last 9.5 years a contributing consultant at the department. Prior to that, I was an assistant superintendent of schools, director of special education, and before that, I was a special needs teacher, taught in a variety of, with different exceptionalities at all 3 grade levels. Also a reading specialist, and just really delighted to be able to share information this morning. So today we're going to be working in the area of career ready skills, not to be confused with Laura's career readiness information. The career ready skills, and I'll talk about them a little bit, are really an essential part of thinking about a multi-tiered system of support. So let's go ahead and get started. And again, just delighted to have you and be with you today, have you a part of this webinar. Oops, it says I'm paused and I don't know why. So I'm not sure why my share, I did not stop the share, but it's paused. So here we go. Let's try again. There we are. So today we're going to take a look at social emotional learning through the vehicle of career ready skills. The career ready skills in Pennsylvania are Pennsylvania's social emotional learning skills. We're going to take a look at the continuum of skills briefly. We're going to briefly also just review some research to support the integration of the skills and obviously into an MTSS system. Think about some strategies of doing that. And then at the very end, I'm going to share the national toolkit from CASEL on social emotional learning during school reentry and recovery. Okay, so I'm going to be talking a lot this morning for a little while. So before I do that, I always love to know who's in the room, and I did get to see that we have a variety of folks from all over the state in different levels. So I have just a couple questions, because I don't think that we can think about education, the multi-tiered system of support, any of that, unless we think about the impacts of what's happened in the 2020 school year. And so I know that we're in the 2021, but really not much has changed since March. So I have a couple questions. Please respond in the chat. First of all, what's been the most challenging part of your role in this pandemic? What's been the most rewarding part? And then, have your emotions and interactions shaped your responses during this time? So if you would just take about a minute and respond, I would love to see your impressions of these questions. Managing teacher stress, wow. Yep, engaging our kids. College and career readiness, oh my goodness, yes. Lack of clear leadership, messaging. And I think it's very difficult for all of us right now. Yeah, interaction, that eye contact. So many good responses. Thank you so much. Fight the good fight. You bet. Thanks, Amanda. Okay. New opportunities and connecting. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, folks are scrambling. There aren't enough people to go around to really support kids right now, and parents and families. Platform is different. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. We certainly have been impacted. Okay, so I'm going to continue. Thank you everyone for responding. There are some, I think, bright spots in what's happening, and I do want to talk a little bit about those in just a little while. Do want to give you the formal definition for social emotional learning. This definition comes from the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning Council. And so this process, and you notice it says children's and adults, is something that doesn't end when we leave high school or when we leave a post-secondary experience. We are continuing to learn how to deal, as you know, as what I've noticed even in your chat, with our emotions, with the way that we express our emotions, manage our frustrations and emotions, make decisions, etc. So that's particularly important right now, not that it wasn't earlier. And as I mentioned earlier, the Career Ready Skills are Pennsylvania's continuum of skills for social emotional learning. They're also called essential skills because they really are essential for functional adulthood, for kids to function in their everyday lives, just as they are for us. One of the folks on my committee when we were putting these skills together was, kids can't add when they're mad, and it's true. It's really true. So let's continue. These are personal and interpersonal skills. They do provide learning targets, which I think are ideal right now in the area of social emotional learning. The skills are evidence-based behaviors. They do improve academic, personal, and interpersonal outcomes by promoting that social emotional competency piece. It's so important. They are essential. They're often called employability skills. We have 3 domains in Pennsylvania. Although I have to say that we have captured the Castle 5. We've just, in our team, we made a decision to utilize 3 domains instead of 5, of self-awareness and self-management, establishing and maintaining relationships, and social problem-solving skills. Okay, these are the things that these skills allow us to do, and I understand that I'm probably preaching to the choir because you folks deal with social emotional learning skills on a regular and sustained basis, as we all do in education. But particularly in your role, I would think that you are seeing these skills. But these are some of the things that they allow us to do. And again, this is why they are so important. So when we look at those three domains of self-awareness and self-management, establishing and maintaining relationships, and social problem-solving skills, you can see the behaviors that by working with students to have them practice these skills, to have them be able to utilize them in the classroom setting and in different settings on the playground, etc. And I realize that we are in a different environment right now. But these are just so critically important, again, and especially this establishing and maintaining relationships. I have to say that in this COVID environment, relationships are the things that are going to really support not only our kids, but our teachers and our families. So not that these other skills are not important, they really are interconnected when you think about them. Okay. I don't want to give you too much research, but we know that education really is a social process. Even virtually, kids are craving that interaction with each other, with the teacher. So I don't know, I know that there were points in time in my own education where I would get occasionally, I was a pretty good student, but occasionally if I was talking or something or passing a note in high school, you know, we used to pass notes, I would get the look. Well, that's a social process that is nonverbal. Just even the teacher's body language, whether or not they're connecting with kids, whether they have eye contact, you know, the look on their face, the questions and interactions and communication that's going back and forth, they are all a social process. So that, considering that, Castle did in 2011, they did a meta-analysis of kids that were able to receive on a regular and sustained basis social emotional learning skills in the classroom. They were practicing them, they were using them. A lot of their interactions within their academics were socially based, such as, you know, working in a small group and collaborating, etc. So over time, this meta-analysis showed that students, and this is a longitudinal study, had those students that had those experiences in the social emotional learning realm had an 11% increase in academic performance over time. And it also yielded far better social behaviors and better grades. So, and then on the converse, decreases were also found in the area of emotional distress and just behavior problems, conduct problems. This study was repeated in 2017 and done in the same way. It was a meta-analysis. And at that time, then the academic performance increased from kids that were using social emotional learning skills on a regular and sustained basis, increased to 13%. So I just wanted to share that piece as well. Okay. We know that there's an all-time high demand, especially now with the pandemic, for these skills. Kids have to be able to self-manage themselves if they're working virtually. A lot of parents are not able to sit with students every single day and work as they're working virtually. In the classroom, you know, I'm married to a guy who is a principal at grades 4, 5, and 6. They have a model, they have a blended model, and so his kids are attending school in two small groups. There are 600 kids in the school, so each student attends 2 days a week. They're in the classroom. They're in that classroom from pretty much the time they get there till the time they leave, other than maybe for some outside breaks. They're wearing masks, they're socially distanced, They are getting art on a cart. They're getting phys ed in their classroom. They're eating their lunches in their classroom. So these skills, again, are extremely important in this particular setting and time. And you can see that even students, high school students, told us that they would much prefer being in a high school where there were social emotional learning skills that were being utilized and practiced and shared, because they felt that it would better help them prepare for life after high school. Okay. We also know that education has changed. Regular education, I hate to use that term, without COVID requires just so much more of kids in the way they make decisions, in the way they interact with each other, with the way that they're expected to think and express themselves. So many things are just so critically important and require those social emotional learning skills more so than when I went to school. And I want to just say that all of the pieces that you're looking at under the 20th century model are still important. But look at the additional demands that are being made on our kids and our teachers in order to prepare kids now for the 21st century. So again, we know that these social emotional learning skills are really expressly needed in this 21st century model. And this is just in a regular education time, not a COVID time. So when we think about those three domains of self-awareness and self-management, establishing and maintaining relationships, and social problem-solving skills, these are the related employability skills that happen that will help our students become employable, become good post-secondary students, should they choose to go to a post-secondary education experience, regardless of the experience. These are the skills that when we work with our kids on an ongoing basis from pre-K through grades 12, these are the skills that our kids hopefully walk away with. Okay. And here is just a sample of the continuum of skills. This is the first domain of self-awareness and self-management, which really helps kids be able to recognize and regulate emotions as well as adults. As I said, here are the related employability skills. Where did these come from? We as a team, when we were creating all of this work, aligned the skills to the National Network of Business and Industries Employability Skills. And these are the outcomes of that alignment on the left here. Okay. And then you can see the progression of skills across the grade level bands, beginning with being able to just label your basic feelings, be able to express those feelings in different ways, hopefully very constructive ways. Whoops. Okay. I don't know what I just did. And then the outcomes for grades 9 through 12, being able to evaluate your behavior in relation to the impact on yourself and others. Wow. Isn't that a great thing to be able to do? And really necessary as we think about post-secondary experiences, right? Whether it's employment, whatever. Okay. Okay, so this is just, again, taking a look at the outcomes for kids as they become young adults. And as we work through our students' education. In the education realm, student engagement is really going to increase. You're going to have far less attendance problems, discipline problems, etc., when students are able to utilize and practice social emotional learning, career ready skills. And look at this, the increased protective factors, they are really needed right now. And then in adulthood, not only will students have a better chance of being employed, they'll have a really good chance of being able to hold on to keep that employment and advance, as well as being able to be flexible and adjust, increase mental health, and reduce drug and alcohol use or substance use. Okay. All right, very quickly, where did these all originate? Well, in 2012, we had something, and those of you that have been in the school counseling area for a little longer probably remember student interpersonal skill standards. They were introduced at the SAS conference in 2012. They were posted on the SAS portal, and they lived there for about a year or two until Common Core came around. And at that time, then we had some real pushback from a very small group that felt that that the department and education was trying to co-opt the teaching of those skills. So we pulled them down at that time. There was just too much with Common Core. But around 2014, we dusted them off, pulled them back out, and started to look at them as a team at the Department of Ed. And in 2015, there was a small committee of business and industry folks from all over the state that came and looked at and discussed what was happening in the area of employment, and some of the frustrations that these business and industry folks were seeing. There were folks there from different departments, education as well, and they really wanted to know two things. One, how are we really preparing kids for workforce? Sometimes high school is just too late. And how are we preparing kids for those employability skills like collaboration, like respect for others, empathy, communication, goal setting, accepting constructive criticism, so coping skills, etc. And two things came of that. Well, the first thing obviously is the career readiness piece that looks at workforce development skills through pieces of evidence from Future Ready PA. That was one of the first things that came about over time. The department moves not as fast as we always wanted to, but it's probably not a bad thing because things are looked at very closely before they're released. And the second thing was, well, what are we doing in the area of social emotional learning, employability skills? So we pulled out the student interpersonal skill standards, wrote a couple of grants, and we were able to work with the National Governors Association. We were able to work with Education Department at Harvard University. We were able also and continue to work with the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, CASEL. And they all vetted these skills because we revised them. And from that revision, we received a lot of great national feedback. And then at the state level, we had focus groups of administrators, educators, school counselors were a part of that, special educators were a part of that. We had parents, we had the business and industry community, so I had things like Geisinger Medical Center was there, lots of small businesses, large businesses. Post-secondary schools, we used Thaddeus Stevens School, and we used Bloomsburg University to just name a couple. And then we had other organizations that looked as well at these skills. And we took all of that feedback went back to the drawing board and really worked hard to make sure that the skills were very clear in what they were asking kids to be able to know, understand, and do, and be connected between all of the grade level bands. So I also need to say that these skills they work like standards in the fact that the skill that's defined within a grade level band should be achieved by the end of that grade level band. Okay, I'm gonna move on. So there are lots of resources that have been developed, and you're probably thinking, all right, Doc Emery, how does all of this mesh with multi-tiered system of support? I'm going to be getting to that. One of the things that we have is we have an introduction or guidance document, and in that guidance document, we have large parts of evidence-based research that support these skills. We also took some time to relate the skills to existing programs within the department and within education. And then we also took a lot of time in doing alignments. And those alignments, the first one that we felt was really important was the Danielson framework for teaching. So the career ready skills are aligned directly to that in this guidance document. We've also worked to make sure that we have the alignments for career education and work standards, English language arts, social studies, and the ones that you see before you, including the math, science, and technology ed practices. So this document becomes really clear and important when you start to think about integrating social emotional learning into a multi-tiered system of support. Okay, so in addition to all of the 21st century demands that I shared with you a little earlier, right now, these are things that are really impacting educators, school counselors, parents, pretty much the education community. And they always have, but it's like they're on steroids right now because of the things that are occurring within the pandemic environment. So you can see that, and I know you know this because you're dealing with these things, that these are clearly really defined as far as needs for our kids and for our teachers, I should mention as well. Okay, so let's think about that. So when we think about reopening, and I notice I have it in quotes because every school and school district's reopening looks slightly different. We know that we're dealing with a lot of losses in the area of relationships, routines, and learning. We know that there's the stress of teachers having to learn more unconventional teaching and learning models. COVID-19 certainly has taken its toll on our health, isolation, stress, and trauma, and families especially. Many families are experiencing economic crises that haven't stopped. And then on top of all of that, the racial inequities that we've been seeing for forever have been exacerbated by the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement. So there is just so much going on. So let's switch gears and start to think a little bit about where these skills belong within a multi-tiered system of support. And really they belong in tier 1. And I know again that this is something that you're probably very familiar with. But when we're thinking about how to integrate these skills into tier 1, there are a lot of different considerations. One is professional learning, teacher evaluations through the Danielson model. I should tell you right now that I am working on a committee for Act 13. Act 13 takes the Danielson framework, and it looks at things like social emotional learning. It looks at equity. It looks at trauma, etc. So these pieces that I just mentioned will be integrated now into a new Danielson framework, which will be rolled out in school year 21-22. And so more now than ever, social emotional learning and those areas related to them, such as mental health, such as trauma informed, looking at ACEs, for instance, and determining how to deal with those. The SAP, student assistance, all of those areas are now going to be framed within the Danielson framework itself. So they will become a part of the evaluation process for all professionals, including administrators, dental hygienists, school nurses, school counselors, you name it, special educators, and supervisors, curriculum people, special education supervisors, etc. So that will be rolled out in 21-22. And right now, we have a committee that is putting together new descriptors for Danielson that include these areas. They will then be provided to different focus groups across the state for vetting and review and suggestions. And we will then be coming up with a final product. Okay. All right. So also the academic standards, we can't forget those. Everybody's hearing how much students are losing academically and how challenging this all is regarding academic progress for our kids. And then our teacher processes, our teaching practices, and our teachers' social emotional capacities, their capacity to persevere, to be flexible, to, now, I mean, we have many teachers that are now the mass police, the COVID police, which is really, really challenging, I think, in addition to, working with kids. And then those student outcomes, obviously, are those things that we're also really paying attention to. Okay. So how do we get these skills into the multi-tiered system of support? Well, there is a MTSS needs assessment and implementation tool that was developed at Patton. I'm just going to open it up very quickly for you, or I'm going to try to. Okay, so let me just share that. And this is always a great place to start. I don't know how many of your school counselors are using this, but it's a nice little tool in the fact that it's pretty easy to use, and it helps to focus where your MTSS process is, whether it's through PBIS or RTI or whatever your school is using. This really, I think, is helpful. And you can see that there are places here that talk a little bit about operating within the school community and the climate and the culture. So there is a direct relationship to that social emotional learning piece, which really should be factored into anything that you are doing in the area of multi-tiered support. Okay. And then let me go back to my PowerPoint. Okay. So the first thing I would hope is that you would look at your school's level of multi-tiered systems of support implementation. Are you happy with it? Is everyone working within the system? Is the system working well? Is your system working well? And if so, that's great. Then you just need to find some pathways for these skills. Sounds so simple, huh, Doc Emery? Haha. So once that's determined, you want to use the Career Ready Skills implementation resources to determine where to integrate. This is a great tool as well. And I mean, this is an evidence-based tool that has 3 levels that I'll talk about in just a minute, excuse me. So you want to think about the following as you're thinking about this. Your staff familiarity and readiness to integrate these skills. There is a SEL assessment that teachers can take to determine their readiness. And as soon as I'm done with this slide, I'm going to share that to you real quick. You can use brief professional development activities to reinforce good practices and link those to social emotional learning strategies. You should be able to gain input from staff regarding what's already happening in the area of SEL, and then some additional opportunities for integration of the skills. We need to be able to recognize those strategies, as I said, that are already in place in daily teaching and learning practices. You want to add the Career Ready Skills language to your multi-tiered system of support language and your indicators into your daily practices. This is over time, folks. And then to create an environment of equity around the Career Ready Skills. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and see if I can find, and I'm not seeing it. I did want to share one thing with you. Let me see if I can locate it. Okay, it's not coming up. Let's see here. So let me just do a new share. Bear with me, folks. Oh. Okay. I will provide, I'm not having a lot of success. So I will provide the link for that multi-tiered system of support so that you all have it through that teacher self-assessment. Okay. All right, not finding it. So one more piece that I think is really important is that equity piece. And it's not the same as an equal education. And again, I'm probably preaching to the choir. You've probably seen the graphic of the 3 kids that are standing at a fence watching a ball game. They're trying to watch a ball game, baseball game, and they all need some support to see over the fence, and they're all given the same size box. Well, that doesn't really work because there are some kids that are short. There are some, one of the children is a little taller, one's kind of in the middle. So what they absolutely need is they need a box that will be appropriate for their height. And that really is probably a great example of equity. It's providing students with what they need at the time they need it, not a one-size-fits-all. And it doesn't matter, it's across the board for kids regardless of race and gender, ethnicity, etc., sexual orientation, family background, financial income of families, etc. So this is Pennsylvania's definition, and I thought you should have that as well. Okay, so let's think a little bit again about that multi-tiered system of support. Okay, Tier 1, the career ready skills should be integrated into daily teaching and learning. At Tier 2, you're going to have those kids that are getting that integrated practice and use of those skills. Now they're a little more at risk. We know they're at risk, so they'll not only receive the instruction in their classroom, they're probably going to get some targeted instruction they should be getting in the area of social emotional learning in small groups. And then in that third tier, where we have students that really need attention, more personalized attention, those I can statements that I'm going to show you should be used to help guide the intervention goals for social emotional learning, in addition to the other supports that are provided at that level. Okay, so in the career ready skills, we do have a model that shows 3 stages of implementation, and these are nothing new. We're looking at readiness, we're looking at doing some planning so that we're not just trying to do things piecemeal, and then we're looking at an implementation plan. And that becomes the how for thinking about those skills in the multi-tiered system of support. So in the readiness phase, we're developing and communicating a shared vision of what the career ready skills looks like at Tier 1. In phase 2, it's a planning phase. We're really looking at data to determine what our current need is, and you're already doing data with your MTSS. So it's not hard to look at this data through the lens of social emotional learning to help guide decisions. And then finally, we start to think about how to create a staff development plan around the career ready skills. We start to look at those I can statements that are student-based to determine what skills should be taught. Teachers can start very easily by using 10 teaching practices that are evidence-based to support the career ready skills, and I do want to show you those. And here they are. So these are things that teachers are probably already doing in a lot of cases. There are 4 social teaching practices out of the 10, and there are 6 academic ones. The social teaching practices are student-centered discipline. So looking to use developmentally appropriate strategies that help kids motivate themselves to want to behave in their classroom. Teacher language, basically how teachers are talking to kids. Are they encouraging, or are they sarcastic and discouraging? Providing students with ability to make some decisions about their learning and their behaviors based on whatever expectations are created within the classroom. And then again, warmth and support. Are teachers supportive? Are they encouraging kids? Do the kids know that the teachers are happy that they're in their classroom? And sometimes, depending on the student, that can be a big ask of teachers, but it's really very important. If you want to see those in action, those 4 behaviors, those practices, we did include videos, and we tried to space them out through the different levels. Folks, these career-ready skills, social-emotional learning skills in your multi-tiered system of support are not only necessary at the elementary level, they become even more necessary at the middle and high school level. You're building your foundation like anything else at that elementary level, and then you're growing that as kids move through the education system. Okay, so these are things that I want you to just put your hat on for a second and think about. All right, we have virtual kids. So how can we do a cooperative learning experience for kids that are distance learning? Well, we can. We can do breakout rooms through Zoom, and we can pop in and out of those breakout rooms. We can still do class discussions. We can ask kids to reflect on what they're learning, including those pieces in social emotional learning. And really reflection becomes, when you're looking at social emotional learning, reflection becomes a really important piece. Balanced instruction, a little harder with virtual learning, but not impossible, because things like virtual field trip or just little activities where students have a focus and they are asked to do something on their own and then check back, or they're asked to collaborate, even virtually. Academic press and expectation, this is hard, but I think, again, this is making sure that kids are challenged but not frustrated. I think that the virtual learning tools that we are using almost require this for kids. So I guess that's one positive. Having kids feel competent in the area of social emotional learning. They understand what skills they're learning, they're modeling them for each other. Teachers are modeling them as well. They're getting opportunity to practice them. They're receiving feedback like they would on academics and coaching as well. Okay, so let me go back now to the PowerPoint. Why am I not? New share. I don't know, let me stop this share and start a new share. There we go, okay. So let's think a little bit about the virtual setting and how a multi-tiered system of support and social emotional learning play into this. Well, let's think about this. When we're thinking about virtual learning, we know that it's important to have something that's more personalized. And that personalization depends on the pace and how students are able to self-manage their time. And not all kids are the same there. The place, so multimodal learning, we can do a virtual field trip, we can do breakout sessions, we can do different things with our kids. The path, so looking at varying activities and having them be adaptable for different levels. Student voice, providing that they have an opportunity to share how they're doing, ask questions, interact with each other. I had a parent tell me not too long ago that their child was receiving one day of virtual instruction and the other days were independently assigned. And this was a student I would consider to be advanced. And she was getting up to 25 assignments a day that she had to do on her own, which is absolutely so frustrating. And this girl was extremely frustrated. And then providing some choice for students and opportunities for choice. So again, we're looking at this MTSS, we're looking at that tier 1, and then we're looking at this layer of virtual learning. Not impossible here. Okay, I talked to you a little bit about some of the tools. I do want to take you to the toolkit that is online and show you 2 things today. One of them are implementation, the assessment for implementation and the strategies for implementation, and the student ICANNs. We also have a lot of things in the area of engagement for families, for teachers and families, for school leaders and families that I think are important as you continue to look at your multi-tiered system of support. So let's just take a look here quickly at the implementation. And this is on the PD website. If you even just Google PA Career Ready Skills, this the toolkit will come up along with the continuum of skills. In the implementation piece, here's those 3 pieces of readiness, planning, and implementation. There is a self-assessment that the school can take to see how ready they are to do the work. Okay. Let's just look at the readiness piece, and here are those pieces that I talked to you about, and they're just described. Okay. And you'll find those within the assessment as well. Here is a readiness planning and implementation document for the skills. Here are those 10 teaching practices that I talked about. Here is the self-assessment. The self-assessment is something that is found on the website for great teachers and leaders, which is through the American Institutes of Research. What you can do is you can go to the SEL school, and this is a tool. So you go under tools, and you want to reflect on your social and emotional skills. So you would click there.
Dr. Emery, I don't mean to interrupt, but we are not seeing what your
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, if you're able to maybe stop sharing and reshare.
You bet.
Okay,
I'm so sorry. Yep, no worries.
Okay.
Okay, let me go back. Thank you for telling me that. Okay, share screen. And there we go. Can you see that now?
No, we're not seeing anything yet.
Thank you. Okay, yep. This is always so much fun to get this to work. So I need to do a new share. Can you see it now?
Yes, we definitely can.
Thank you so much. So here's the tool that I was talking about, self-assessing social and emotional instruction competencies. And it is an online tool for teachers. There is a paper copy as well. When you go in to take this, I've taken it, it takes about 15 minutes to take this. But the nice thing is, if you do it online, you do have to go in and you do have to do a password and a login, but it stores the results. And then as you start to work through SEL, you can go back and look at your original responses, and you can see your growth in areas where you still might need some work. And this does use the CASEL 5, which works really, really well with those career ready skills. Okay, so I did want to share that. And all right, and this is the actual tool. This is the hard copy part. It is from 2014. It's still, though, very applicable. And I hope I'm not making anyone too dizzy, but I do actually want to get to the tool itself so you can see it. It does align with those 10 practices, those evidence-based practices. There they are. There are the 4 social emotional practices, social teaching practices, and here are the 6 instructional practices. There's the scoring rubric. This is great staff development, folks. Okay. So let me stop sharing. I did want to share this as well and go back to the PowerPoint. So that was the first thing regarding the implementation. And then the second thing that I think is important to see is that by domain on the implementation page are, and by grade level band, are activities. So I'm just going to quickly take a look, have you take a look at these. And so looking at this, you can see these are the 4 behaviors for self-awareness and self-management in grades 1 through 5. These are performance indicators because when we were writing all of this information, teachers said, you know what, Doc Emery, these look really nice, these are great, but what do they look like in my classroom? And then there are supportive practices that can be done by adults, as well as specific practices in the area of self-awareness and self-management for grades 1 through 5. So I did want to share that as well. I know I'm taking you back and forth. And then finally, the I can statements, which are listed under Appendix B in the toolkit. And I'm just going to grab part 2, which are middle school and high school. So here we go with the actual career ready skill.
Dr. Emery, you're going to have to reshare that. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. Hey, folks, I will never, ever be the queen of technology, not ever.
Well, this is all good stuff. We don't want to miss any of it.
I appreciate that. So let me go to new share. And here we go, Appendix B. Okay, we're in Appendix B. And can you see the ICANNs?
Yes, we can see those.
Okay, so here is the actual career ready skill. Here's the performance indicators. And then these are the things, these are the behaviors that students can identify with. So students can identify others' feelings and communicate in a respectful manner, respond to others based upon their perceived needs, etc. So these are really important as well when you start to look at that multi-tiered system of support and integrating the career ready skills within them. Okay. Okay, let's move on. And obviously there are lots of other great things. As I said, We have the ICANNs. They're ready to rock and roll. They're posted. I'm waiting for a formative assessment based on the ICANNs. It's basically a checklist that teachers can use to look at their class and determine where kids are working in the area of self-awareness and self-management. There's 3 areas to determine need and where to actually start integrating skills. So that's one thing that I think is really important. There's also a certificate endorsement. So anyone who is a instructional 1 or instructional 2 teacher can take the 12 credit course and just a very small experience, and they will have that endorsement in social emotional learning and mental health on their certificate. And then there is also for professional development in the area of social emotional learning in the SAS portal. There is a course. And can you see the SAS portal?
Dr.
No,
Emery, we'll need
we
you to reshare again.
Sorry.
All right, so just let me do a new share. And here it is. So we're in the SAS portal, and you need to go in and log in, obviously. And then under Tools, you're going to go to the Professional Development Center. And I'm going to log in there. And you can then take a look by course. So if I do social, whoops, let's go back. I know I'm going through things very quickly, but you can search. And the name of the course is Social Emotional Learning and Career Ready Skills. I don't want to go over my time though, so. Course option, and it's an Act 48 course. It is a 5 credit course, and of course I can't find it, but it's here. It's a 5 credit or 5 hour online course. I see why. No. It's not going to let me find it, so I'm going to go in my classes. And so here it is, Social Emotional Learning and Career Ready Skills. So I couldn't do it by SEL, they're very picky. Here's the course. Here's a module description. The questions. Basically what this course does is it introduces folks not only to social emotional learning, it does it through the career ready skills categories. And it also helps the learner determine what that might look like in their particular environment. So it's 5 hours of Act 48. And we are developing a second course that will be strategies to utilize within the classroom. So I need to do a new share here and take you back. And the links are here. Okay, so this is how to get to the toolkit. And I do want you to just take a moment and respond to me in the chat. And I'm sorry for not being able to share things right away, but you get the gist. How does your school, how do your MTSS initiatives and practices, if you are an MTSS school, align with the Career Ready Skills Phase 1, which is really just readiness, determining your readiness, and how will integrating these skills strengthen your MTSS system in both tiers, Tier 1, 2, and 3, but mainly Tier 1. So if you could just take a minute and respond in the chat.
And Dr. Emery, while people are responding there and we're starting to wrap up, I wanted to let you know that we did have Amanda in the chat responded that she is currently enrolled in that SEL course and she's loving it.
Perfect.
Did you say, was there
I see it.
Yeah, was there a charge for that course or no?
The I can statements are awesome. Thank you, folks. So I see some schools are just moving into MTSS. If that's happening, there's no better time than to think about integrating these skills into your Tier 1 experience. Perfect. And they developed oh, I'm looking at these. These are awesome. Folks, you're doing great work. MTSS, again, it can be done. All right. Even in this environment, in this COVID environment, in fact, it's just that much more important for our kids. Remember, we're all here just to support our kids and our families and each other. I do have one more thing to share. This is the Castle Roadmap, and you're probably wondering why in the world I am so committed to the work that Castle has done. Well, they've been working in the area of social emotional learning for about 35 to 40 years. Pennsylvania is a partnership in something called the Collaborating States Initiative. So 2 times a year, I used to get to go to Chicago and meet with 39 other states and a US territory. And we would share our information on social emotional learning and policy, social emotional learning policy, you name it. And Castle, we still work with them. I still collaborate with them on a regular monthly basis. So I'm fortunate, and our state is fortunate to have the benefit of their oversight. They never ever tell me anything to do. They just offer support and they offer help. So this is their toolkit for reopening. It's a little different than Pennsylvania's. Pennsylvania did a really great job with the toolkit, but their toolkit for COVID is many things. This toolkit is solely social emotional learning skills. There are 4 main practices with 3 to 5 activities and tons of resources and essential questions. This is the link, and because I'm out of time, I'm going to stop here. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat. I'm going to be around for a little while. I'm going to be around till 10 o'clock. If you have information that you have more of an ask for, you can contact me via phone or via email. And I want to thank you very much for your attention, even though I wasn't great in switching back and forth between my presentation and the links. So thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Emery. You did absolutely fine. Don't worry about it.
I'm not worried. I know my limitations.
We did have a lot of people wondering if you would share your PowerPoint with us so that we can post it for after the webinar. Would that be permissible?
Absolutely, I will share it. I will send it to Steve and
Okay.
He could share it out, okay?
Okay, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. We really
You're so
appreciate it.
welcome.
You had so much information today. Really appreciate it.
That's a lot of, I know, and thank you every school counselor and everyone that attended. Thank you for your patience and for your input. I loved reading the chat information that you provided. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I want to thank Dr. Emery too. And again, she highlights so much. When we were forming, taking a time out of where we're leading into. When we were drafting the reentry guide for PSCA, we wanted to really capture all the exceptional work that Dr. Emery and the rest of the PDE team did in building that social, emotional, and wellness guide, and also capture some of that great work at Castle as well. And then in addition, if we can platform and highlight it through the use of things like tech tools right now, we'll shift into that right now.
That's awesome. Thank you, Steve.
So I'm Steve Sharp. I am not here on behalf of PSCA, and I am not here representing PSCA. Right now I'm here representing an organization called Counselors for Computing. Right now, Counselors for Computing, we provide a wealth of resources across the nation for and directed at school counselors, and specifically here in the state. And I've been working with the Department of Education in regards to school counselors and technology for, I don't know, Dana, about 5 years now, I'd say. And so we wanted to take some of that expertise and narrow the focus down into tech tools.
Yeah, hi, so I'm Dana Weil from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and we're gonna jump right into this today. And we will drop in the chat a link to this for you to refer to later, as well as in what they share out. So our goal is to share with you some practical tech tools, but also think about the good school counselor stuff, about where do these fit in the realm, and a little bit of how this works in terms of connecting our students to the future of work. So I just want to introduce some of the counselors that are going to help me out today. We have Kelsey Kamen, a graduate student at Millersville University, and has been helping Steve and I on a bunch of projects at the Lancaster County School Counselors Association. We have Tori Sparks. Tori, now the name of your school is popping out of my head.
Connellsville Area School District in Fayette County.
She's an elementary school, and then we also have Erin Campbell from Mifflin County. She is also at elementary level as well. So when you're thinking about technology and using these tech tools, and there's a bunch that your school's probably mandating or learning. I saw in the comments earlier that there was using all these tech tools you didn't even know existed. So we will introduce a couple of them. But I also want to think, like, when you are looking at tech tools, there's an overwhelming amount of options. To think about what is the right one for you. Really, the core of computer science and the core of the purpose of technology is to solve a problem. So really defining all these tech tools are out there, and you don't want to just use them just because, oh, I'm going to use a tech tool. You really want to think, what's my problem? Am I trying to engage students? Am I trying to engage parents? What am I trying to communicate? What data do I need? So making sure you know what it is that you need, like what the purpose is, before you choose a tech tool. Some tech tools that in the school counseling realm, think of time savers, automation. Manufacturing is changing because of automation. Our entire economy is changing because of automation. What can we do in schools and in our school counseling role? Can we use technology to help automate our things? How about data? Like, all computer science and all technology is about data. What meaningful data do we need? What can help you build connections in this virtual environment? And then you want to consider the ethics of the tool that you're using and the way you're using it with students. You're going to have your district technology policies to think about. There's copyright laws and fair use laws. You also want to think about equitable access. Is the tool you're using accessible to your students with disabilities, to your students with differing abilities? And do they have the captions in there? Do they have the alternative text? So when you're publishing something to the web, you want to think about all those pieces. You also want to establish some clear virtual boundaries. So ASCA had a really good piece on this early on about if you're in a full virtual environment or in a hybrid virtual environment, establishing those boundaries. So if you're using a tech tool to communicate with students and parents, for example, clearly communicating what those boundaries are. But then also think about evaluating a new tool against your own values and priorities and other values and priorities. So at our school, we made this like virtual Zen Den website and places could go to. And as we're putting on these resources of yoga videos and relaxation and mindfulness apps, we had to be really conscious of, okay, what's the representation? What are our other values? So we found some apps, that mindfulness apps created by Black content creators. Yoga videos, at first, they were all just white women yoga videos, and we had to reevaluate that against our priorities and values. So as you're choosing new tech tools, think about maybe if you can find out who made it, what's the representation in what you're using. Steve, you're still muted.
I was going telepathic. As we're talking about this, go ahead and throw in the chat your favorite tech tool and why you use it, just pivoting off of Dana. So when we talk about like the use of technology, up until really the shutdown, there was a very clear language that was happening as far as school counselors' use of technology. If we looked at some of the literature, really there was self-reported low levels of comfort in using technology in our practice. When it came to our records keeping, more often than not, it was paper calendars and paper notes. And then in addition to that, when we came to survey responses, there was a strong disagreement as far as the importance of the use of technology in our practice. But we understand in addition to that, when we had counselors' response focused strictly on technology, again, increases our productivity, increases our ability to engage with students authentically, and then it increases our ability to advocate for students to enter into careers that they're less likely to, and these are STEM careers, careers in computing. The more comfortable we are using technology, the more comfortable our students are going to have, the more comfortable we are going to be able to present our students with these 21st century careers that have the highest return on investment when it comes to bachelor's degree investment. These are the highest and low stress careers according to Money Market and Forbes. And then in addition to that, according to the Business Insider and most recent analysis, these are going to be the most stable careers throughout the pandemic. Like we as school counselors, like our basic competency is to be aware of trends in technology and to use that technology to empower our students to access learning. This is part of what is being asked of us to do as far as our core practice. And in addition to that is a way that we can safeguard our students through our ethics is to apply technology as a tool of access as well.
So one of the concepts in science and computer science is design-based thinking. So we need to help students as we are in this virtual environment, think about computer science not as just like one person in a cubicle in front of their computer with a stereotypical male, right? Computing and modern computing and computer science is really a collaborative process, and it's a human-centered process in when it comes down to it, because it's humans utilizing these things. So you can connect your students to think about, you know, that career question that was inspired a while ago about asking your students not what they want to be when they grow up, but what problem they want to solve. So as you're rolling out tech tools, as you're utilizing things with your students, you can sort of process that with them about how is this technology solving a problem and helping that into their career connections. So we are going to introduce some tech tools to you, which I know everybody's excited for. And we've sort of grouped them in lessons for student engagement and student lessons in terms of live interaction, and then student-parent engagement more as like your sort of like your program or community, and then also your detailed program management, so some of that automation piece. Steve, do you want to add anything before we dive into a couple examples?
Just with some of the best people across the state, and I'm very excited.
Okay.
Hi, Dana Weil here. I'm going to share with you a tech tool called Flippity.net. It is awesome because it is a bunch of tools within one website that links with a spreadsheet in Google. So you don't even need a Flippity account. So let me show you quick how it works. There's a lot of YouTube videos that go over more details for teachers. So mine will be super, super, super brief. And then I'll show you what I think school counselors can use it for. So here's all the things available in Flippity.net. You've got a random name picker that's like a wheel. You've got a Jeopardy type game. You've got flashcards. You've got other formats of randomizers, scavenger hunts, timelines, matching games, drag and drop objects, typing test, word clouds. That's one of my favorite. So there's a whole bunch of tools. And what Flippity does is it gives you a demo so you can kind of see what the tool is. You just need to be able to read and have a Google account because it gives you then the instructions. And if you follow these instructions, you will be golden.
So because there are so many online tools
or videos that show how to use Flippity, and because it actually includes the instructions for how to make every single activity on here, instead I want to talk about the big picture for a minute and the career connection. So it's helpful when students appreciate what they're learning and understand the bigger picture and why computer science is important for everyone to take, regardless of if they're going to major in it or not. Because we're all using devices and we're all using websites, and at the core, websites and apps, they're about data. It's about what data is available, how to use it, how to spit it back out for a user to be able to use. So think about your own student information systems. You know, you have data that's their attendance, and you have data that's their grades. And as a school counselor, we're just trying to access that. We might have input from teachers, and we have all this data, and these teachers have inputted this data, and we're trying to access it and find out like the best way to communicate that data, not only with us, but with families and with students, and get that data and feedback. And so that is the gist of all programs, is drawing from some set of data. So Flippity is like a small version of that. So the Flippity website has all these different games, and they have written in the background program of their website a code to draw from data. So every single one of these uses data from a Google spreadsheet, and it gives you the instructions to make a copy of their template so their program knows where to draw the data from, and you put in your own data. So for example, the random name picker, if I go back to the demo, is spin a wheel and you can use names. So you would go to the spreadsheet and you would put in your own student list of names from your own roster. Or you can put in other type of data. For example, you could do it as a get to know you game and put in fun questions, or you could do it as a study review game. And then each spreadsheet of your data that you set, you would publish and make public so Flippity could see it, and it makes you a unique URL for your own game. So they would click it, and even though the wheel, you can't see the question, once it's done spinning, the question comes up at the top. So that's the gist of what Flippity is doing. It's letting you enter in your own data into a spreadsheet, and their website is making that data into a game. So if you were to do spreadsheets, the demo is with capitals and different facts that might happen in the classroom, but as a school counselor, we could use this in a number of ways. We could have students do their positive thinking on here, where you could have a red card and a green card where they're challenging their negative thinking with a positive reframing. So there's different possibilities for using this. It includes all the instructions you need to be able to set it up for the classroom. We just have to think about like, what data do we want it to use, what names, what questions, and it makes the rest, tells you how to do the rest itself.
So Flippity
Hi, Dana Weil here. I'm going to share with you a tech tool called Flippity.net. It is awesome because it is student information system.
That'll get us out. Okay, sorry. So my little cursor was hiding my paws. Anyway, so yeah, Flippity has a bunch of things, and there's a lot of YouTube videos. So I went through it really fast, just for the sake of time, and some designed specifically for teachers, but it includes all the instructions of what you do for each game. And someone said, they're using Office 360. So in terms of security, it just needs a Google spreadsheet. So you could do it with your private Google account. What you're sharing with students is just the link to the Flippity, you'll share a link to there. So the students don't need to be accessing Google or anything. So it shouldn't, if you're doing a live lesson with kids virtually, or even in the classroom with Flippity, you could potentially use, your own Gmail account if your school doesn't officially use it, because it's not really a security issue. It's tied to your own just a single spreadsheet, not like your whole data. You're not giving Flippity permission to view all your things, which one thing I found with add-ons like Google, I see a lot of comments about Google is great. And there's all these add-ons that make things way more powerful, but some schools are locking down add-ons, and Flippity isn't like an add-on. So it's only looking at the spreadsheet that you put data into. Okay, and I'm turning over to Kelsey to talk about Bitmoji classrooms. I know this was something I saw pop up this summer, and I was really excited to use.
Bitmoji Classroom is a lot of fun to just to make, and then it's a great tech tool for engaging your parents and your students. So just think about that when a student comes into your office, you're able to share so many resources. Well, with our students at home being virtual, we want to be able to offer that same opportunity for them to access all of those same resources. So we might have made a Bitmoji Classroom, and all it is a Google slide where you've put a bunch of images that are also links. And when you're doing this, you're able to give them these access to the resources that they might not have been able to receive if they weren't in your actual office. One of the pro tips that I have for it is if you have videos, you can actually make them play as soon as they have the Google slide up. So you'll be able to set the settings so that sound doesn't play or that it starts at a certain option in the video. But it's so that way it points the students to specific spots that'll kind of grab their attention to go to that feature. And also, if you did spend the summer making a Bitmoji Classroom or a Bitmoji Office, you are doing the job of a graphic designer.
And I did share in this Bitmoji Classroom, I took a lot of time going through free resources. And so I did link for you basically like you can go shopping for pictures. And I cited all of the free teacher pay teacher resources. So that is in here if you haven't made one yet. Erin?
All right, good morning, everyone. So we're going to move on to tech tools for student and parent engagement. I will admit I am new to using Loom, but it has easily become one of my favorite new tools, especially for working virtually as many of us are right now. So Loom is a screencasting tool, as Dana will show you my video here shortly, but it is a great way to send a quick video to any of your stakeholders to share information. I know that sometimes it's easier to just send a quick video other than a lengthy email or a text. So you will see a crash course in Loom in this video.
Hey everyone, I'm Erin with Counselors for Computing, and I am going to very briefly talk to you about another tech tool called Loom. I'm actually using Loom to record this video. So Loom is a screencasting tool that you can use, and it will simultaneously record your desktop screen, your microphone, and your camera. So what I like about it is it allows you to add this personal touch to a video that you're creating to send to any of your stakeholders in your school counseling program. The first thing you want to do is go to loom.com to create an account. Definitely use your school account or your school email, because Loom is still offering pro accounts to educators during COVID, which is really nice of them, because then you can have unlimited videos and you can store all of those permanently. So definitely create that account first with your school email. Once you've done that, you kind of want to decide how you want to, what type of videos you want to create. Okay, just some really quick ways that I brainstormed were to record yourself doing lessons or read alouds. You can be down here, show your picture down here in the corner, and on your screen you can be showing pictures or PowerPoints or other things. So you can kind of moderate those things. They can still see you, but they can also see your content, which is great. Say you're having some parents or teachers that are struggling with using a technology platform that you're using, during this time. This would be a really great way to create a quick tutorial, because you can record your desktop and show them step-by-step how to use a certain platform, and that would be really helpful for them. And then lastly, just any sort of presentation that you're going to do for parents, teachers, students, your advisory council, you can pre-record it ahead of time, and they can see you down here in the corner. You can have a live photo like I am right now. You can have a default profile type picture, or you don't need any picture at all, and they can just listen to your voice in the background while you're recording your screen. The last thing that I'm going to share that I really like about Loom is once you've finished recording your video, Loom allows you to download it right away. You can see here's the download button, okay? And You can then copy the link and paste it right into a social media post or an email. Actually, what's really nice about the links from Loom is when you embed it into an email, it has a small thumbnail version of your video right there. So your audience can't, when they receive the email, they can play the video right there within the body of the email, which is great. Another thing I personally love about Loom is that you can stop and start, and once you've published your video, you can see right here, it allows you to go in and trim or edit out places where you might have messed up or had a little blooper. It's a really quick tutorial on Loom. I hope you'll check it out because there's a lot of ways that it can really make your life easier and benefit your program during this time. Enjoy.
Okay, so in the chat, some other people mentioned that they use Screencastify for the same purpose. Another great resource. You know, Loom is definitely not the only one out there, but it is, I think, pretty user friendly. So
I
definitely
think
check that out.
to answer Leslie's question, so our school originally was more promoting Screencastify over Loom, and then Loom became like opened up their resources free to educators. So like their advanced settings are free to educators, and they've made a statement that they're going to keep it that way forever. So where some of these are like free just during COVID and then you have to pay for it. So I think that is when our school necessarily like made the shift over to Loom from Screencastify, but because you're sharing a link and because you can upload the link in YouTube or save it on your Google Drive, that's not necessarily one that like my district anyway cares which one we use, as long as we share in an easy format. Yeah, and Steve, if you upload it to YouTube after you record it, then you get that closed captioning, which is key for our differently abled students.
Yeah, foreign languages, hearing impaired, upload it will take just a minute.
All right, my last tech tool that I'm going to share is called TweetDeck, but to back up a second, obviously if you're going to use TweetDeck, you want to start with Twitter. If you are unfamiliar with Twitter, in our Bitmoji classroom that we'll share in a little bit, oh, sorry, I have a friend here. There is an extensive 15-minute video that I did talking to you about all the basics of Twitter, and that might be helpful to get started. So obviously twitter.com, create an account there, and then that video would be really helpful for you. I use Twitter twofold as a professional development tool to learn from other school counselors that are out there, and then I know that some people have a Twitter account for their school counseling profile or as their department profile, where they share information. And again, in that video, I kind of go in depth as to choosing which type of profile you want to create. So once you have that Twitter account, TweetDeck will be very helpful to you. So you go to tweetdeck.com and log in using your Twitter username and password. Okay, so you'll see this is a screenshot here on the screen of what a TweetDeck would look like. And it allows you to follow multiple hashtags. What is a hashtag? It's that pound symbol followed by a word or phrase that allows you to get content unique to that hashtag. So you can see on the top of this screenshot, I am following hashtag ESCchat, SCchat, and then CS for all PA. So the ESC chat is elementary school counselor chat. SC chat is just school counselor chat. And then the CS for all PA is computer science for all PA. And you'll notice for certain webinars and conferences and things, sometimes they will create their own hashtags so you can follow along as to what people are sharing. So these chat hashtags, definitely check those out if you have a Twitter account at some point. Those hashtags have you chats at least once a month that are unique, that you can simply log on and follow along to whatever the conversation is about, or you can participate in the chat. You just need a platform to follow the hashtag as you see here. Also, you know, this is a new time for all of us, and we need ideas for different things that we're doing. So, you know, go to Twitter. If you just need some resources or some ideas for things that you're doing, type out that question and add one of these hashtags, and then other school counselors that are following along with those hashtags can respond to you and give you suggestions. It's a great tool to connect to counselors everywhere. So Great stuff. And lastly, something that's helpful, especially if you have a Twitter account for your, your own school counseling professional account or your department, you can see here on the left, TweetDeck allows you to schedule tweets ahead of time. So, your Sunday scaries, you can go ahead and knock out something off your to-do list for the week and pre-schedule all the tweets that you want sent out to your stakeholders. So that is really helpful. Yeah, that's a crash course on TweetDeck.
I was laughing yesterday because I finally started reading Interrupting Racism, Equity in School, Social Justice and School Counseling. And in the intro, the authors met each other over Twitter as a school and like following a school counselor hashtag. And so their story, but they met over Twitter and then now they have a book published years later.
Yeah, definitely don't be intimidated by it. It's a surplus of information all at your fingertips and it's free and we all like free professional development. So check that out.
Yeah, and I like scheduling stuff ahead of time. So we do at the high school, we use it. So if I have an event in like 3 weeks, I could pre-schedule a reminder before the event, a day of tweet, a week of tweet, and then like tweet the announcement about it. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Tori.
All right, good morning, everyone. I am probably the least tech savvy of the group here, but I needed to solve the problem of how can I let my third, fourth, and fifth graders request to see me without having to go through their teachers, without having to come down to the office and interrupt everything. So I, several years ago, created a Google form. So I made this video to show you how you can make your own. And
Tori Sparks here with My Tech Tool. My Tech Tool is a scheduling tool that I put out for my students in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and it would be used for any grades above that as well. I created a Google form that the students can request to see me so they don't have to check with their teacher. The form is very simple: first name, last name, their homeroom teacher, what area their problem falls into, a brief description of their problem, and when they feel that they need to speak with me. I had to add this parentheses when someone is in danger of being hurt because everything was an emergency to my children. So once that is created, you go over here to your responses tab, click the 3 dots and make sure there is a check mark on get email notifications of new responses. That is how you will instantly know when a student has requested to see you. Our little green spreadsheet right here, this is what you click to create your spreadsheet. So I want to show you how I share this with my students. So send, you can email it out to them directly. Instead, I choose to use a link. Of course, the link comes, it's ginormous. So I click shorten and copy. And I've gone into my Google Docs now, just made this little sign that says, need to talk to your school counselor, Mrs. Sparks. Go to this web address to let her know. I paste that in there. If you hit enter, then it will underline and become blue. And this is what they then would type in to talk to you. If you have Bitly, you also can use that because that you can customize on your own. And that's what I used. But my very first year, I used just the regular Google Forms, shortened link, and it worked great. Posted these all over the building on where my 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders are, gave it to each classroom teacher in my office, everywhere. So let's see what happens when a student comes or wants to request to see me. So we have Susie Sunshine. She's in Mr. Green's homeroom. She's having some family issues. My mom and dad are getting a divorce. And today or tomorrow is good. She hits submit. She gets this screen that says, the 2021 request to see me has been recorded. I then come to my email and I have a notification from Google Forms that I have a new response. So that's how quickly you will know that someone has responded to you. Then you get to go to your Google Sheets that you have created. Everything is in here. The newest one is at the bottom, Susie Sunshine, what's going on. And you can even add notes to the side for anything that you need. It automatically saves. It is in my Google Drive so that nobody else can touch it. And that has been a lifesaver for me on being able to keep things in order. I hope that this helps you, and good luck with your new tech tools.
Awesome. So, Forms also has a lot of cool add-ons you could use if your school has add-ons. So one of my favorite, my school ended up shutting down and then they wrote me a program that does it. But one of the if your school has add-on, is the add-on form publisher. And what that does is you can put in an email address and then it would send families, or send like a student a PDF of their response. So we use it with like junior, senior interviews at the high school level. And so there's a whole lot of different ways. In terms of if it's an emergency at the high school level, we put like disclaimers on some of them about the time to get back to us. So depend on your own building what that disclaimer you would want in terms of, you know, the responsiveness of it. So there's a couple others that you can explore, like with Loom. I see some questions about booking appointments. Someone was saying they were using Calendarly. That one, Google also, if your school is using Google, you can also put appointment time slots on your calendar. So Dawn asked, does anyone have a resource for how to book an appointment from Google Forms? Tried a few and show student names, but we need it to be confidential, not request an appointment, but book one. So there's a cool, if you're on Google, and I actually, let's see, I can even pull this up for you real quick and then we'll move on. Well, then we'll wrap up, we're almost done. But on my calendar, and sorry, I didn't like hide this stuff, but if you go to make an appointment and then instead change it to appointment time slots, it'll have, like, you can give time slots and it has a unique link, and I don't have any up right now, so sometime I'll have to loop back to you. But you can share this and students can book appointments from an appointment time slot. So play around with that, see if that meets your need. So if you want more information, we do, this team of people, we do work all across the state on tech tools and counselors for computing and preparing students for the 21st century workforce, in terms of the way that we all are on apps, right? And we all are on computers, and we're all looking for them to meet our needs. But if they're only being created by a homogeneous population of people, then are they really meeting the needs, and is it really equitable to all of our students, regardless of their background? So it's really important that we help all of our students see how computing ties into any of their job, whether they want to be a teacher or a social worker or an artist. So if you would like more information, we'll drop these links in the chat as well. Sign up for more information. You can also sign up to get information from the National Center for Women in Information Technology and their Counselor for Computing program. So that's the NCWIT C4C link there.
We're really happy to continue to be here as we have in past symposiums, to provide you with all the best resources when it comes to technology, school counseling, and the future of your students. And we look forward to doing that in whatever capacity. Look out for us over the summer, as we'll probably be part of the CS for All Summit again. But with this, I'm going to turn it back over to Amelia.
All right, thank you, Steve, and thank you to all of you for all of those wonderful technology tips. You went through them so quickly, and there's so many, so I'm really glad that we will have a recording of this webinar available for any of you to go back and watch later in case you missed anything as you went through. So again, thank you, Dana, and thank you to your whole team. At this time, I am super excited about having our special guest here with us today. So I want to introduce Dr. Kim McCurdy. She is the Executive Assistant to our Deputy Secretary, and she is going to go ahead and make the introduction for us. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Amelia. We're very pleased to participate in this partnership with PSEA, and it was a great presentation today. I actually have taken some notes and have taken away a lot of items to take back to our office as well. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce, for one of the last times, the current Deputy Secretary of Post-Secondary and Higher Education, Noe Ortega. And some of you may know on Thursday, Mr. Ortega will transition to the Secretary of Education for Pennsylvania. So we're super excited to have him come from our office. So without further ado, Noe Ortega.
Thank you, Dr. McCurdy. And it's an absolute pleasure. I feel like one of the initiatives that we came in with, or that Secretary Rivera specifically asked me to sort of implement, was to really strengthen our partnership with school counselors. In fact, the idea of the School Counselor Symposia was something that he had been working with my predecessor in this role, and then a few of the organizations out there. And so I find it quite fitting that my last real speaking engagement as a deputy secretary is with this group, because I really do feel like we spent a lot of time cultivating and figuring out how to best and meaningfully engage with each other. And so I assure you that that work will continue. The individual who steps in as the deputy secretary is certainly going to understand the importance of working closely with our school counselors and working closely with our counselors in general, right? Even those that move beyond the secondary or the K through 12 setting and the roles that they play within our post-secondary institutions. I think if anything, the partnership that I've seen between the School Counselors Association and the college admissions counselor has just been really a remarkable thing to sort of observe. And then all the other community organizations that play a role in what I think is the ecosystems of guidance for students as they think about their post-secondary plan. I hear and somehow I managed to stay updated on all the developments going on during the symposia, as Dr. McCurdy does a really good job on sending me updates. One day someone will submit a right to know request on my cell phone messages with Kim McCurdy, and they're going to come to find that about 50% of the messages are snapshots from the various presentations that she goes to in a number of areas, and this today was no different. So thank you, Dr. McCurdy, for the continuous update on that. Seems like a lot of effort was spent today talking about the career readiness standards and the framework, and then as I stepped on a few conversations around toolkits and things like that. All these that have to do with helping our educator workforce, in this case the school counselors, think about how to continue to be engaged with students and their families, even though we've pivoted to sort of this remote virtual platform, right? In some cases, some of your schools may be fully remote, while others may be in some sort of hybrid model. But by and large, many of us are engaging with students in a new way. And then, as I mentioned before, as we were having these conversations in the previous symposia, that we are now engaging with the entire network of the students, right? From the support they receive around where they live, but also other people who may be coming in and out of their educational experience for whatever reason, right? There's no telling with the kind of environments or diverse learning environments that many of our students currently find themselves in, and which makes it a little bit more challenging to figure out how we could be better prepared, right? I think many of these resources being made available are important things for many of us to take advantage of. And I also think that associations such as this, the Pennsylvania School Counselors Association, play a really key role in being able to filter some of the resources that are coming our way, not filtering in a negative way where they sort of screen out things, but at least help folks make a decision on where they might be able to look toward or invest their time in order to meet some of the needs that they have, right? And I think as we're moving through the fast pace of changes, those are really important. I do want to spend some time asking folks to think about a few things, and these are things that I'm looking to fold in to the narrative that I began to sort of roll out as I assume the new role, right? Much of this picks up on the legacy that Secretary Rivera has left behind for us to sort of work in, many of those tied to the values of equity, diversity, and inclusion, and the engagement of all folks to ensure that we create sort of the right conditions for individuals to be effective. But I think there's also a part of the vision and mission that doesn't get unpacked very much, right? While we believe that all students have the right to resources, tools, and educators who give them what they need to embark on their own success once they've completed their education, right? So the post-secondary pathway. We also think it's important for us not to forget some of the other needs that are met by our schools. Educational attainment is very much associated with some things that are really key at the moment, and one of them being civic outcomes, right? The way that we think about engaging with society, the way that we become active participants in our democracy, the way that we think about our engagement with communities. These things are all important outcomes associated with educational attainment. Much of the research has demonstrated that the more educational attainment folks are able to acquire over time, the more meaningfully they are engaged with some of the civic expectations that exist in a society. And never has the time been that much more needed for us to really understand the importance of being able to engage in that way, right? We're seeing a lot of things play out publicly that are concerning to me. And I think, you know, being someone that comes out of the field of education, I personally feel that education is the conduit to help people engage with some of these challenges in a way that's more effective and that has outcomes that are good for all, right? Like, I think this is the importance of what I think all education systems play in our society. This is especially important during a time where there seems to be a loss of distrust in a number of our institutions that have been established to protect and serve us, right? You don't need to look very far to see the episodes playing out around the entire country around how folks are engaging with our police force. These are systems, these are institutions set up to protect us, and now we're having to rethink how we engage with them, and it's creating a very, very polarizing environment, right? We're also seeing some, excuse me, some distrust in institutions that are also set up to protect us during the pandemic. The debates that are happening at the moment with regards to the multiple messages that we're receiving from legitimating bodies that include the Center for Disease Control, you know, the CDC, the World Health Organizations, the Department of Health, and other entities such as the Pennsylvania Department of Education. We're not exempt from the level of distrust folks are seeing. And I think it's important that we figure out how to work through those things and ensure that we begin to understand what values many of these institutions have in our life, you know, and I want to focus on the education system because I think that's important in terms of a takeaway. There are elements that many of us provide our students as we engage with them and even their families that really elevate the importance of being responsible and engaged participants in our communities and societies to better understand what it means, how our behaviors have impacts on other folks. And I think we got to infuse that back into the pedagogy and learning that's happening, whether it's in our classrooms or the guidance that's often provided by folks such as yourself to students and families. What we're doing at the moment to be able to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 has a lot to do with our ability to understand how our behaviors have implications on other folks, right? And I think the same concept is going to need to be applied with how we navigate whatever the results may be in the forthcoming election, what we see in terms of transitions in leadership in the future, and then what we even see in terms of transitions within our own organizations. And I really do think that a lot of these skills that we talk about when we think about development of young folks really need to tap into this understanding, right? I've been paying a lot of attention to how we frame discussions and outcomes associated with education. And often the tendency is to transition to the things that are obvious in luring folks into these pathways. These transactional sort of private good outcomes that have to do with individual social mobility, economic well-being. In some cases, we broaden the narrative of transaction to think about community impact, but often it stops at the area of kind of the local impact, right? Where we really need to work with young folks and ourselves as well is to transcend the sort of localized idea and think about the more global impact that we have in terms of the decisions that we make and the behaviors that we enact periodically. And I think those are going to be things that are really important. So as I think about, as I was thinking about the remarks that I could make to this group as you round up your day today, I want to really encourage people to take that next level in their thinking, which I know many of you do, to begin to identify ways to tease out those messages to young learners. Find ways to elevate the importance to your colleagues at school, from your teacher colleagues to even the school leaders, to really not forget the importance of making sure that folks walk away or are given that message from time to time. It is really an important, we are sort of at an important point with young folks to really understand what it means to be a really good engaged citizen, right? And a participant in sort of society. And we see these sort of messages play out all the time. And I think it's important that we step in and help people make sense of what they're observing, to understand that there are certain events contextually that lead to behaviors that we're seeing play out in the media among young folks, and then to really begin to contextualize them in a way that makes sense. And we ask the question, why are we observing what we're observing? And then even more, why am I feeling the things that I'm feeling? Because the way that I'm observing and interpreting all the messages around me in society. I have a feeling that these are only going to continue to grow exponentially. The more we see things play out publicly, the more we find ourselves in sort of limited interactions with other folks, the more we find ourselves in sort of this sort of imposed quarantine that we need to kind of go through in order to navigate some of these things. We're going to begin to see some of these elements play out as we're already doing. And I think it's going to be important that the messages that we have around mental health, well-being, being responsible and engaged members of society are going to become extremely important as we think of a number of these things. As always, as I move to close with these closing remarks, I do want to thank each of the members of the School Counselor Association, Steve, and a number of folks as well, for your continued insistence on not allowing the Department of Education to let down its support to your association. I know that sometimes it feels as if you are sending email after email to try to engage a few folks. You have to do that. I think it's important that we understand that until we've been able to establish systematic engagement with the association, where these things become taken for granted, we haven't reached the level of inclusion with certain levels in a profession that we would like to achieve, right? And so you must hold that standard while I'm here. And then even when this administration is long gone, I think that's the expectation that our professional groups must have with the association. We depend on you heavily, right? And I think schools depend on you heavily. You are where most of the professional development happens for our folks. The continued learning is not happening exclusively in institutions of higher education. They're happening in these types of state level professional groups. And I think the more that we can infuse and collectively think about the message, the better off we're going to be in looking to have sort of the global societal impact that we look to have. So once again, thank you. And thank you for making this sort of the last stop that I have before I transition into my new role. It's not the end of me, but I will interact in a way where I can now encourage other colleagues, even in other agencies, to continue their interaction with the association. And you have my commitment for that as well. So thank you.
Deputy Secretary, I know that we say it amongst in our inner circles here at PSCA, but really looking and our collaborative work, I'm very excited to say we're just getting started.
Great,
so.
great. So I don't know if you want a few questions or if there's some thoughts. I'm happy to respond to a few things. I don't want to cut into your time. I feel like people have already planned, so I want to be respectful of that as well.
I'm going to turn it back over to you and Amelia. If there are any questions for the current Deputy Secretary, you can throw them into the chat right now.
Hi, Amelia.
Hi, how are you? Thank you again for being with us today. And it is kind of symbolic that we're one of your final stops on your way to being secretary, but we do look forward to continued collaboration with you as you move into your new role. So thank you again for your message to school counselors today and acknowledging the work that we do. It means very much to us. I wanted to make an announcement about our next counselor symposium because at the beginning of the webinar, I gave you the incorrect date. So I really want to make sure I give you the correct date once I bring it up here, but it will be a week from today. The date is October 6th. And again, it will be held at 8:30 in the morning. And the topic for next week is going to be career readiness. And we will have Laura Frederici with us, also from PD. So she will be talking to us on that topic. Again, the website to register for that is paschoolcounselor.org/reentry. One final thing that I wanted to let all of you know, you'll get our first announcement here, so you have some privileged information. Our annual conference will be going virtual this year. So I wanted to let all of you know that registration will be opening up on Monday, October 5th. So please check out the PSCA website at our new web address, paschoolcounselor.org. And the dates of the conference will be December 3rd and 4th, the same as if it were live. So we are definitely going virtual. And please keep checking back for workshops that are going to be there, keynote speakers. All of that information will be posted very soon. And we look forward to all of you joining us for that special event. So again, thank you all. And I'm not sure, were there any questions, Steve, that we needed to address, or can we send those to him later?
Yeah, I think if you can just pass on a wealth of gratitude that I see in the chat right now. And other than that, just a special thanks again to current Deputy Secretary Ortega and Dr. McCurdy again.
Yeah, Dr. McCurdy, if you could please, I know that he's gone, so if you could please pass on to Deputy Secretary Ortega all of the well wishes that our members are giving to him. We'd really appreciate it. So thanks again for being with us today. All right. Thank you all. And we will see you next week, hopefully. Take care.